This is Glenn Auerbach. I grew up in upstate New York, spent the first 25 years of my life there, and moved overseas, moved to Europe, and that's where I traveled around, spent a lot of time in the northern countries of Europe, and that's where I first got hip to sauna. And when it came time to come back to America, instead of going back to Buffalo, I chose Minnesota to relocate and make that my home. So I moved to Minnesota and found this beautiful lake in the north called Lake Vermilion. It reminded me so much of the topography of that archipelago region between Sweden and Finland, and I felt really at home with that. And my time on an island in the archipelago was really formative, because every night we would knock off work. I was doing construction, and we would go to Tomei's other uncle's island, and we would fire up the sauna stove, and we would boil potatoes and perch and flounder from the Baltic. And I was like, I want this as part of my life forever. So finding Lake Vermilion was like an aha moment, and then finding the Kuuma stove was a second aha moment, because the heat that I felt right in there made me feel right like I was back in the archipelago of the Baltic. So it was a very profound thing to find Kuuma and to find the nature that I love, and it's been a part of me forever. I always say I'm a 218er, which is the area code up here. I'm really a 218er at heart, a transplant 218er, and Kuuma is interwoven in the tapestry of the lakeshore saunas and the community up here, and so I just feel a real identity to Kuuma for that.
So take me back. It's the mid-90s. You drive to Tower, Minnesota. You stop at the Lamppa Manufacturing dairy. What's your first impression?
Well, it even goes back further than that. I bought an island before my wife and I were even dating serious or married, and the first thing I did on this island is I took out the old Franklin stove and I put a Kuuma in there. It was one of Daryl Lampa's, hand-welded Kuumas. And the idea is that I would have the Kuuma in the cabin, and then I would kind of gather myself to building a sauna, and then bring that Kuuma out to the sauna. So that was 1989, 1990. And then my wife and I got married, and we had our first child, and we sold that island and bought land on a big island up on Lake Vermilion. And sure enough, the first thing I did was build a sauna before the cabin was even built. And that was my second Kuuma that I purchased in 1995. And I used that one last night. That's over 30 years old, and I love it. I mean, that is, like I always say, next to my wife's wedding ring, that was the best purchase I've ever made. The old dairy was a workshop. I think that's the line that's often used, and I can attest to that. But what I loved about the old shop is it was a throwback in time. The calendar on the wall, I think, said 1972, and that was about the vibe. All old equipment, all DIY, hand-built. And I always thought the New York Times, Sunday Journal could do a piece on Lamppa Manufacturing, because the craftsmanship was all hand-done, and the workmanship and pride and quality of material and quality of the welds. It was a very special place. It was a dirty place, and I always remember your dad's jacket. It would have burn marks on it, and weld marks and tape and stuff. And that's what I love about 218. It's a real hands-on craft artisan community, and there's entrepreneurs dotted all in the region, like Daryl Lamppa back in the day. A lot of people call Kuuma a tank, and I use that, I think that's a compliment, but not really the full extent of the compliment. It's a tank in that it's super quality built, and we know that. We know it's a heritage stove in terms of multi-generational, love and design and care that went into the construction and build of it. But I don't have really the perfect word to describe it. I mean, it's extremely functional. I think it's beautiful. It's artisan. It's a craft piece, and I love it. I just love my relationship with the stove, because it's so dynamic, and it burns wood so beautifully that it allows me to enjoy sauna how I love sauna.
You're sitting in front of the new Kuuma BLUFLAME. Take us back to your first impression.
Well, my first impression was, what's going on? I think the Kuuma itself is just magnificent. It's perfect. And when Daryl came to me and said, I'm looking at making something different, I quite bluntly thought that he had a little too much time on his hands and was just looking to sort of fill some free time, you know. But I think what he was really taken with actually comes back to me is what I would do with my cabin sauna is I would fire it up and I'd leave that ash pan open a little bit and go for a run around the island trail. We have about a 3-mile trail around our part of the island through the woods and stuff. And by the time I'd come back around, the sauna would be rocking, and then I would close the ash pan. And your dad had enough of that. Daryl did not like any of that. So I think that was one of his motivators to go back to the well, to re-engineer and tweak what is, in my view, perfect, to make something that is even safer and easier to operate. And I'm just blessed with the fact that he gifted me the first BLUFLAME to mess around with. Being asked to test the BLUFLAME has allowed me to kind of revisit the relationship I have with the traditional Kuuma, and I'm just I think a little bit more respectful to the wood that, you know, the amount of wood I use. And here's just a simple example, like out on my island cabin sauna, I like to have like 3 or 4 extra pieces in the hot room, kind of laying down there, and they're invariably different sizes. And it's really fun for me to say, hey, does the fire, you know, after 2-3 rounds, like, do I need more wood in the firebox? And usually it's not. Usually it's just a matter of pulling the coals forward and using the latent heat that's in the firebox from the coals. But if it's hungry for a piece of wood, it's actually really quite fun to look at the sizing of my options, almost like cards in a deck, and pick the size that kind of fits how much fuel I'm thinking I'm going to need to carry that final couple of rounds or whatever. So I become more conscious about wood, you know, and one thing I also love about Daryl Lamppa and the company Lamppa Manufacturing is just burning wood better is a concept that I really love. I mean, I think it's really interesting I manage my wood pile. I use mainly birch, and how much moisture content is in there. And then, as mentioned, you know, the size of the wood and being able to throw that perfect size log on to get that perfect burn. And so I really appreciate being a little more nuanced to the fuel and the burning of my Kuuma. I help a lot of people build their own saunas, and when I talk with DIY homeowners about building a sauna, I find they're often a lot easier to walk through the process because they don't have preconceptions like builders do. And when I speak with builders, they get things really quickly, but they compartmentalize a lot of the elements of sauna building, and it's not always translatable. And I think that kind of relates to my decades of experience with the legacy Kuuma, the traditional Kuumas. When I got this new BLUFLAME, of course I didn't listen to Daryl's instructions, and I just lit it like I normally do, and I didn't really see the power and benefits of it right away until your dad sent me a box of wood, kindling, and newspaper and said, burn it this way. And so I kind of retrained myself, and I followed Daryl's instructions to a T, and wow, it really made a difference. It took something that is nuanced. In other words, I know how to light a Kuuma very well. I know how to use the damper very well. And I just had to dummy myself down and start all over and take it in its most simplest form. And that's what I did with the BLUFLAME. I have a wide range of microclimates that really appeal to me with sauna. And you know, for many people, and you know, I just totally respect that, you know, they look at temperature as the measure. But temperature is the primary measure of a climate in the hot room. There's many other factors to it, and that's one thing I do love about the Kuuma is I can run it and get a hot room climate that produces steam that's very hot and dry. Some call that spicy, and I love that. I love that spicy, especially in cold climate saunas. Having that steam that kind of hits you hard and bites at you is a really great climate to have. There's another climate that I really love, and that's this sort of like soft and wet steam that you can have, and you can achieve that with the Kuuma very easily. And you can do both, just depends on where you introduce water on the rock. So it's a really versatile stove to create a microclimate that works no matter what mood you're in or who you're taking a sauna with. Not everybody's the same. Some people want, like, flip a switch, 180, you know, take a sauna, not think, and go home, right? But I think Kuuma customers are different. I mean, it's like cooking, right? Like, there are those that really get into how food is prepared, how food is made, how to make it taste better, that kind of thing. Others just want to plate on the table and eat and go home, and that's what I love about people like us that are into this sauna in a very deep, resonating way. Really get into the nuances of heat, and Kuuma allows us to do that. You know, we all know that the stove is the heart of the sauna, and that's, you know, when you have a really good stove that not just is well built and transfers heat so beautifully, but the efficiency of the wood and the burning and that, it's like a good sound system. It's like going to a great concert with great sound. I mean, you have the fundamentals, and then how you tune that is really up to you. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of sauna, is creating that microclimate that you enjoy. Sauna for me isn't something I just started, dealing with a couple of years ago. I mean, I've been into this stuff. Well, I use this joke is that, my friends, they used to make fun of me, and now they all want a seat on the sauna bench. And that's a testament to how popular this practice has become. And I've just been a huge fan of sauna, and I will never not be. It's a part of my life forever. And so I wrote a book on how to build a sauna in, I think, 2013, and I started Sauna Times and my website in 2008. And it's really this clear, objective and mission just to help others realize their own authentic sauna dreams. And, part of that, comes down to people asking me, a common, fork in the road is, should I go wood-fired or should I go electric? And, I'm always wood-fired, like that's my jam, is I'm more into the wood, certainly, than electric, because I love it. And I have to admit, I mean, it's kind of unfair, because for a long time I would be like, yeah, wood, it's not that much harder than electric, and the heat is so much better, and it's well worth doing, and you'll love it. But what I realize is not all wood sauna stoves are created equal, and I have kind of grown up in a bubble of ease of use and quality of heat. For example, with the Kuuma, I mean, I'll light it at 4 o'clock. I'll go down for round one at 4:45 or 5 o'clock. And I told you about maybe adding one more stick through the sauna process. It's like, ease of use. And I realized that a lot of people asking me and saying that they're leaning toward electric because they don't want to mess around with wood. Well, now I kind of understand, because a lot of wood stoves, I mean, if you're not stoking other sauna stoves every 30, 45 minutes, that fire is going to go out. They burn hot, uncontrolled, and that's just the nature of that beast. I'm not used to sauning that way. I'm used to like a really easy way. Like in winter, for example, like I'll go out to my backyard and trudge through the snow and light my Kuuma at 4 o'clock, and always at 5 o'clock it's ready to go. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've gone out there with a towel around me and a cold one and open the sauna door and the fire's gone out. I mean, very rarely, but it's the set it and forget it concept that is not all fact with all different stoves, but it's certainly true with the Kuuma. I think really simply said is you can really regulate your entire sauna session by the amount of wood that you carry into the hot room and light, on your first go. And I have that down pretty good. I can go to my wood pile and grab 4 or 5 sticks, put it in my arm, go into the hot room, load I like the upside down fire on the Classic. And the BLUFLAME, it's much better to light with kindling up toward the front and all that. But once you have your amount of wood that you need, you really don't have to mess with the Kuuma after that, which is insane when I learned about how other sauna stoves roll. it's this 30, 45-minute thing. And I can understand why people like outside feeds, for example, because that's the tradition, is you're just stoking the stove, you know, every 30, 45 minutes for 3-4 hours and getting everything up to temp. But I just love the nuance of being able to regulate the Kuuma so efficiently with a small amount of wood like that. Just enough wood for under your arm, usually carries you through for a sauna session. Add 1 or 2 as you may need it. Well, I can think of 3 reasons right off the top of my head. I mean, the Kuuma is so efficient to begin with, and the BLUFLAME is that much more efficient. I'm looking at maybe 20 to 30% less wood than a stove that burns very little wood to begin with. So efficiency, number 1. Ease of use. I mean, you light it, it's really set it and forget it. I mean, I never thought that a stove could run any easier than the classic Kuuma, but this one, you just set that damper and that's all you need to think about. And really the tie-in on that is like the 3rd reason is if you're running any kind of commercial business or running a stove a long time, then the BLUFLAME really shines in terms of that ease of use and efficiency and less smoke. So it's a home run product the way I experienced it. So I think there's another thing that's kind of coming into play about whatever you buy, you know, it could be anything, is I really like who made it and what's the company all about. And, you know, to me, Lamppa Manufacturing is just such a great representation of integrity and commitment to the community. I've gotten to know some of the employees and they love working here and they treat the employees really well. And so, I mean, there's a lot more to a product than just the product. It's the people behind it and the commitment and the integrity. And there's nobody better than Lamppa Manufacturing anywhere that I've ever experienced in terms of those values. And I'm just proud to be able to use one.